John, are you seeing the network of coalesced around the idea of anti-Trump? Are you seeing it being durable? Are you seeing it crack? I know we talked about Antifa just now, but what about the corporations? What about Black Lives Matter and the race people? What about the blue church and the establishment and the institutions and such? Are they all still on the same page?
Well, we saw the resistance break into its component tribes. And you have the anti-racist tribe, the anti-colonialist tribe, you have the anti-fascist tribe, and the anti-fascists are off kind of going in their own direction. They're still a little bit more aggressive, and they started to get targeted as a result. But one of the kind of things that came out of this is that we saw, 2-3 years ago, that the government was kind of outsourcing domestic stability and control of the messaging in the society to corporations, to the big tech companies, and that has accelerated. That these companies are accruing incredible amounts of money, and they've started to take over everything having to do with the public sphere. We saw that. I don't know if you want to jump into the kind of the disconnections that happened, but.
I'm interested in this phrase that you just used. And John, can you just rejiggle your audio system there? Just maybe plug it back in again. I'm interested to discuss the breakdown, but you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting there, which was outsourced domestic tranquility. What does that mean?
Yeah, in counterinsurgency operations, you often have stabilization operations, and you try to stabilize the political environment, and you stabilize society, and you take efforts to do that. There's lots of different things that you do in order to maintain that stability. That was kind of pushed onto the big companies, and you saw people like Zuckerberg and Jack and others sitting there going, well, they're asking us to do this, and we don't want to do it, but we're kind of doing it anyway. And they kind of that's always the excuse of any tyrant, right? They're kind of forced into it. It really came to a head in January after the Capitol event. That was used as an excuse to radically accelerate and radically expand corporate control over society, over politics. And in essence, they took over the political system in the U.S. And it's
let's just pause there for 1 second.
Right.
The corporations taken over the political system in the United States. It's a pretty heavy statement. Yeah. And I remember growing up, and I remember there's always been people complaining about corporations, corporate power, etc. But this is different, right? This is different. This isn't complaining about corporations in the 80s and 90s. This is a completely different environment. They have so much more power, and they are relatively unchecked. Right. And they're now actually moving into curtailing human rights, and they're actually sort of creating a alternate constitution in some ways, right? I've seen you say terms of service are more important than the Constitution today. What does that mean?
Oh, well, what the corporations provide the party in power the ability to do is to restrict communications and restrict behavior in a way they couldn't do it through any kind of legal means. It's a route around. They're able to exercise power and do things that could never pass Congress. I mean, everything from disconnecting Trump, which was purportedly the most powerful person in the world, a seated U.S. president. I mean, disconnecting him from the most powerful and widespread platforms, communication platforms, unilaterally without any repercussion. It was just amazing. And then, that basically said to the world, nobody is above us. That's why Merkel and others started getting worried, because basically, these platforms have taken over and said there isn't a powerful enough politician in the world to overrule us. We can take you down. And then they started. They went after Parler, and when they disconnected Parler, Amazon Web Services disconnected them. They said there's no alternative but us, right? The there's nobody else but us, and you can't build a technology alternative, and that could potentially be, used against stuff like Bitcoin and others in the future. And then there's this cascade, right? Once the big guys go, it's just not the big communications platforms, the big social networks. They create a cascade of disconnection across all of the online services and then offline services. So the Parler CEO goes, wait, we lost our text provider, we lost our email provider, even lost my lawyer. I mean, everybody disconnected all at once within 24 hours. So you basically become unpersoned. So that the threat to you as an individual, no matter who you are, is that if you push against this, you don't follow their rules or their arbitrary kind of interpretation of their rules, you will be unpersoned. You'll disappear from monolife.
You nailed it there when you said the arbitrary application of their rules, because it's obvious that we've seen that the application of the rules has been focused on the folks on the right of center for sure. I just saw a network visualization that showed that sort of left and right universes. I think you retweeted it also. There were three colors on this visualization. They were red, blue, and black. And black represented all of the accounts that had been disabled and the broken connections. And you could see that there was the red sphere, and then there's a whole like hemisphere of it just black now. And they've been doing it systematically over the last 4 years. A couple of comments on what you just said there. First off, Parler, what a clown show. How the hell were they hosting on Amazon? Like, clown show, just not even thinking about the future, no one advising them, obviously, on the real circumstances that they found themselves in. If they really, truly were trying to operate as an upstart, sort of insurgent social media force that was an alternative, then why were they hosted on the same damn thing everybody else is hosted on, freaking Amazon? Like, I don't understand that.
It's inexpensive and allows you to scale fast. Right? It's so much less expensive. If you go to the big cloud services, you can scale your stuff on the cheap. You can make money by doing it. If you have to host it yourself, I mean, I built a data center before, and it is a pain. It's terrible. It's like, expensive, and it's difficult, and cloud services are so much easier. I mean, that's the bind here is if you want to be big and if you want to have reach, and you want to have millions of people using your stuff, you need to be on these big services. I'm sorry.
It's no problem. It's no problem. We have the same issue here with Rosie as well. You have to be on the big services, but if you're thinking long term, if you're thinking strategically, then you got to be smarter about that. And that's what tells me that Parler was a clown show from the jump. I had personal interactions with them. My first day on Parler, I got banned because I was questioning their terms of service, and I was trying to figure out like how they were really operating. And I tweeted, I went onto Parler, I posted some questions about the terms of service, and within a few hours, they had deleted my individual posts on Parler. What do they call them, parlays or something? They deleted them, and you could see right in there, it just said deleted by admin. And I reached out, I contacted the CEO, I made a stink about it on Twitter. I ended up talking to the CEO of Parler on the phone, and I interviewed him, and it was clear that they just didn't know sort of what they were doing or what the real environment they were operating in was, because had they really known, they would not have ever allowed themselves to be that vulnerable, I believe. And then something else that you said earlier too now is about this cascade. The cascade is that I know it's like we want to make sure we're on the same team. We want to make sure we still have access to Amazon. We want to make sure that everybody still sees us as a good guy. So they respond to the leadership of the biggest guys, of Amazon, of Google, of Twitter, shutting down Parler and Trump. And so they react like that. This is an example of an emergent phenomenon, John, or is this potentially an example of the top-down directive saying time for everybody to get on board and disconnect right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of different factors. It has the kind of behavior that you get when you're raising. You never raise a lot of money. I've raised like 50 million before on different ventures, and it's always tough to get that first investor, the lead investor. And you get that one that has some kind of stature, and you get them to go, and they put the first 5 million in, and all the rest are easy. Everyone else says, okay, I'm in. And it's the same thing with these big platforms. When they go, they kind of give cover to everybody else. Nobody else wants to be left out. They don't want to be singled out as the holdout, because if they're still providing support to the people that are being unpersoned, they become targets in the future. They're suspect. Their services could be attacked, and they could be disconnected by the rest of the network. I mean, these networks are completely interconnected. I mean, they offer services. I mean, they control the information flow for 3.5 billion people, and Facebook, for all its decline here, is still growing at 200,000 people a day. So it's like still getting big, and these services span everything. I mean, they cover dating, they cover job search, they cover basic communications. So you can't really get anything done without doing this. You have a small business, you have to use Facebook and Google to kind of market your business in order to get the flow in, or Amazon to deliver your products using their distribution system. So you're relying on them, and if they disconnect you, they unperson you, you're done. You're dead in the water.